We are TNM News.
Hi, everybody. Todd Denkin here with TNM News, and I'm excited because we're in the studio with a couple of good friends, and these are two guys from a company called Culture and Cannabis. JC Coates, of course, is here with us, and he is the founder, started off in the event business, and now he's running all over the country selling cannabis. We're going to talk about that. And, of course, by his side since 2018, a gentleman by the name of FullTime Tony, not a part-time Tony. He is full-time Tony. His name is Tony Lee, and he is a Nevada native, born and raised here in Vegas, went to school up in Reno, got his business and marketing degree at UNR, and knew my daughter, actually. So Tony also has started multiple companies in his life, a serial entrepreneur, it seems like, even though he's very young. I'm sure that he'll be a serial entrepreneur over time. And he's been a consultant in the cannabis business. He owns a restaurant here in town called Smoke and Fire. And he became a partner with JC in Culture and Cannabis, like I mentioned, back in 2018. They started off in the event world, right? And now you guys got your own brand. So tell us what's happening with Culture and Cannabis. Who is Culture and Cannabis? And, you know, what's the goal?
Right.
Well, first of all, thanks for having us on, Todd. Really appreciate it. Really excited to be here. I know it's been a long time coming, so we're both really excited to be here. But
awesome.
I'll let you take it away about what we got.
I mean, you know, today, Culture and Cannabis, I like to say we're emerging leader in the media and THC product space. So we're a cannabis brand, and we lead with marketing and media. We sell our products in Nevada and in Oklahoma.
Awesome. What kind of products are you selling?
So cannabis products, THC focus, and basically like the overall arching kind of what our products are. They're just high-level creative cannabis products that kind of serve an experience to the consumer. Also, it comes with a content like around the product that will kind of tell a story or in some way, form, or fashion have a positive impact on the community that we serve.
Interesting. So you're using media to really sell the products and give you know, like a personality to them almost.
Right, because that's who we are, right? We're just, we started in the event space. I'm just a scrappy, off the street corner entrepreneur that did concerts, right? And
I call him an alley cat.
Yeah, an alley cat. I've emerged from the alley. But yeah, that's, and we kind of doubled down on that. And, we built a community through the event process, starting back when cannabis became medically legal ish, right? I know we've had a program here for a long time, but when the stores started popping up and stuff around 2015, we created that event. It was a monthly event. We executed it every month for like 4 years. It kind of became a centerpiece of the community and the industry. And we, had the opportunity to take that data and that community and those relationships and that influence in the market and structure a licensing deal with a license here in Nevada, which is a big deal for us because it's a limited license market. Yeah. Just to get in the game out here is very difficult. So we're really proud to be able to do that. But yeah.
And what is a Culture and Cannabis event like?
I mean, yeah. So the whole premise of a Culture and Cannabis event is that, we highlight the culture of cannabis as it transcends through the plant, through people, art, music, and food.
Nice. Oh, that's great. So you have, performances and, different brands come in and kind of showcase their stuff. And
yeah. So, the event has transformed a lot over the years, right? And so, like, if you look at it now, it looks like we're about 7 years in. We used to do the big anniversary parties, but we didn't have them through COVID. But I think it's like, so our events look very different today than they did 7 years ago, and so like, they used to be, quite frankly, low budget events, right? Free, low budget, local talent. Today it's around about a $30,000 production that we put on and try to showcase and create value for the sponsors and value for the attendees, and just create that experience, right, that we can connect our products to our consumers.
Awesome. And how did you guys meet? How did you get involved with Culture and Cannabis?
Podcasting.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, actually through podcasting. So I was up in Reno at the time, and I had just got done doing the first ever Reno Cannabis Convention. And I started doing a lot of consulting for a bunch of different businesses up in Northern Nevada. One in particular was this CBD company called Harmonious CBD. And I became close friends with the owner, Brandon. Anyways, through that process, I've been getting hit up on Instagram from this New Leaf in Lake Tahoe account about like, hey, we're doing these like super awesome pop-ups. You should come hang out. We have free food, great deals. Da-da-da. I was like, no, why the fuck am I going to drive? Oh, sorry. Am I allowed to curse on this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sorry.
Wait. He said, "Why the fuck?"
Sorry, I just didn't know if you know. Anyways, so I was like, I'm not gonna drive all the way up to Incline in the middle of the winter to go see the same people and brands and get the same deals on products as I can get down here in Reno. So it makes no sense.
Right.
And so in that time period, we got Harmonious CBD into New Leaf, and then Brandon got featured on that podcast, and then he was like, wow, the podcast is so great. You're going to love JC. He's also an event guy. He lives down in Las Vegas, so you guys are probably going to get along really well. And so I checked out his Instagram. I was like, oh my God. Sort of like rolled my eyes, like another Vegas promoter turned cannabis entrepreneur, event promoter. Like, I had just been, my whole life I grew up in Las Vegas, so I knew the promoter scene and like what that kind of entailed. And it's so funny too, because like he always talks about how like the promoter has changed over time. Anyways, so I go up to New Leaf for the first time with Brandon to go be on the podcast and meet JC. And I walk in the door and I see him, and he's wearing this like H&M long tee, the skinniest jeans I've ever seen, and the Gary Vee. The new Gary Vee shoes. I literally had just come out like 2 weeks ago. They're what was it? Clouds and Dirt?
Clouds and Dirt.
The Clouds and Dirt shoes. And I see him. I was like, yo, what's up, man? My name's Tony. Nice to meet you. I'm JC. Like kind of like a little standoffish, like almost a little skittish. And I was like, what's wrong with this? He was like, I really like your shoes. Like, yeah, whatever, bro. I got shit to do. And so he's like running around, and then we hop on the podcast together. And as soon as he started the podcast, it's just pretty much me and him talking the whole time.
Right.
So after that, we just kind of built a connection, and then I would go up there every other week when he would come up and be on the podcast. And then I liked it so much, I would fly down to Vegas to come be on the podcast too.
Nice.
And then through that process, we just became closer and tighter. And then JC ended up leaving New Leaf, and then he was like, yo, we should just keep doing this, and we should just do our own podcast and call it the Culture and Cannabis podcast. And I was like, yeah. And I remember the day, like we were like 3 episodes in. After we're at our partner Chuck's house shooting an episode, and I just remember JC grabbed me like, listen, bro, we can make this something special here. We can do something big here, bro. Like shaking me like this, and he obviously like I'm a big dude compared to him.
Yeah.
Like he was shaking me like almost like startled my soul, and I was like, all right, well, no one's ever shaken like that before, so I guess I better do it with him. And it's been a happily marriage ever since.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the podcast for a minute. What do you guys talk about? What's a typical guest, and what's the goal of that?
The podcast, like the whole idea behind it is like, just like our name, Culture and Cannabis. So it's highlighting the people within the cannabis scene and then the people around that culture. So we try to have a wide variety of guests on. I feel like we've done a really good job. You've been a guest on there. Shelby's been a guest on there.
Yeah.
So I think it's been really cool just because, one, we get to, like pretty much every week for the past, 4 years now, we've met someone new or been able to gain a deeper relationship with that person through doing this dialect, right? And so it's like, a lot of times we don't have, like a lot of times we're on our phones. Like I talk to you via email, you know what I'm saying? So having this type of like experience, especially today, is so important because that's how you connect with someone deeper.
Yeah.
And it's crazy too because, the podcast just like leads to things like a business partnership, right?
Sure.
That one time me going to New Leaf to be on the podcast with JC turned into us being able to sell 7 figures worth of cannabis over the past 2 years. Right. So it's like, I think
I agree. The personal touch that you have when you're talking into a microphone with somebody else, right? It does. You create this bond. I always say it's like smoking a joint with someone.
Yep.
Right. It's there's a bonding experience, but this also has that binding, experience too, don't you think?
100%. Yeah. For me, that was one of the byproducts that I didn't realize. Right. And so like when I've always understood kind of media and how it was helping me do things. Right. Like I used to make Instagram videos, but anyway, like doing the podcast, like being able to sit down with those people, right? Because it used to be all about the metrics, right? How many subscribers do we have? How many listeners? How many viewers? Right. But after doing it for a year and then looking back on the 52 people that I have like personally connected with a deep conversation is super valuable, right? And that turns into all kinds of things.
Good. Yeah, I love it too. It's you meet people that you wouldn't normally meet, right? And you get to have this deep, conversation with them. And some people tell you stuff that they wouldn't normally tell anyone. I interviewed Jackie McGowan, who ran for governor recently in California, and she posted something on Facebook where psilocybin saved her life.
Yeah.
So I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, you want to tell your story?" And we had a great 45-minute discussion about how she was literally suicidal and how psilocybin saved her life. Anyway, cut to a couple of weeks later, we had it posted on YouTube, and she called me. She reached out and she said, Todd, that was the most honest interview I've ever done ever, and I want to thank you for it. And I was like, wow, that was great, because she really opened up and really got to tell her story the way she wanted, and I think that's real important.
Yeah, that part of being able to have a platform, right, and give people the opportunity to kind of get that out there, I think that's kind of like at the core of that connection, right?
That's right.
And what I also like about it too is that sometimes we'll bring on guests and they might have a viewpoint that I might not necessarily agree with, from a scope of not being able to talk to them about it, but the nuance of being able to talk to somebody about a point you disagree with or maybe you don't understand completely, I think is so important. That's like, you lose that via phone or text.
Right.
So I think
you want to talk to someone you disagree with?
Yeah.
Wait a second. What's happening here?
Yeah. There's been a bunch of people who like, I honestly just like did not know them, they come on the podcast.
Right.
I asked them questions that I thought were quote unquote hard questions and they answered them like, into a sense where it's like respectable. So like, you can gain someone's respect by having that conversation and, just record it.
100%. And where does everybody find your podcast and your website? I know you have a big Facebook presence.
Yeah. Facebook is Culture and Canna. So Facebook is weird with the word cannabis.
Yeah.
And then our website is cultureandcannabislv.com.
Awesome.
You can find the Instagram at Culture and Cannabis, and we post a lot of clips up there.
Good.
And then we're on all streaming platforms. We're on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. Awesome. That's where we're at.
Yeah, check them out. Culture and Cannabis. It is a really fun podcast, and I have been on a couple times.
Yeah.
Happy to come back anytime.
Definitely. We got to get back on too.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. So you were in the event business. How'd you make that, transition, into weed?
Well, I think I've been doing events for 20 years before I started the Culture and Cannabis event, and the overarching theme of my career of doing events was sometimes it's embarrassing to talk about, but like bigger, more. I wanted it to be. It was always like this thing of progress that I needed to sell more tickets. I wanted to get bigger headliners. I wanted to grow, right? And so it's like, after I had been doing events for so many 20 years, and it's just like, it almost kind of feels like, I'm not growing anymore, right? And it's like once I had the chance, I was doing events in the music space, right? But when I had the chance to do the events in the cannabis space, it was completely different, right? I was executing my event marketing style the same way, but the response was different, and that was filling my fulfillment cup a little bit different. And I kind of latched on to events again, right? And I was almost done with events.
Right.
It was like, how many fucking DJ shows can I do, right? I'm 40 fucking years old, right? So, but when I was like, all right, this is it, right? I'm gonna go all in, right? It's like, it's just not a good after so many years, right? But when I got to do it in the cannabis industry, I started to meet the people and the patients and the stories, and then I have my own story, right? It just became this really cool thing that I wanted to stay committed to. Right. But then I have kids and a family, and I knew that I had the opportunity to make it even to something to where it could pay me and it could pay the people around me. Right. And I didn't know how to do it, but I knew Tony did. Right. And that's what, because, Tony went to college, right. And all that stuff. I didn't go to school. I'm a high school dropout. Right. And, so there's certain pieces of information that I just didn't have, right? Yeah. And so like I knew that we could do that. And it's kind of like it's such a trip, right? Because it's like when you have a dream, right? Or you have like this thing that you like, right? It's like you have to get your peers to kind of sign up,
sure.
come on board too, right? And it's like there was that time where I I had to really get them on board. You know what I'm saying? They're like, oh, it's a great event, but I don't know if it's about products or this or that, right? So it's like we had to get them on board to all that, and then it was just like,
we almost didn't name the product Culture. Like, well, it's not that JC didn't. Me and my other partner Chuck were like, I don't know if we should call it Culture and Cannabis. I think we should figure out like a different name. Like, I think there was a couple like Five Oaks, and there was like a couple other ideas that we had pitched.
Right.
And going through it, I think I don't remember what it was exactly, but I think we went to a meeting and they were like, "You guys are going to call it something different between off Culture and Cannabis," and I felt like an idiot in that meeting, and I was just like, "Yeah, you know what? You're probably right." And then after that, we called it Culture and Cannabis because it didn't make any sense. We already built, JC had taken 4 years of his life to build this brand. Why would we try to change it up?
I could see it, right? But it was kind of hard for other people to see it, right?
Sure, of
and
course.
so you had that.
I call it seeing the invisible.
Right. That shift,
everybody can see it yet.
That
Right?
shift
You
has to
see
happen,
it in your brain, but
And I guess what's so crazy too, like, cause he talked about that, cause he really had to like posture me and Chuck to like be able to like visualize like what he was thinking, because like now thinking back on it, like I was like, how could you call a product Culture and Cannabis? Like, it didn't make any sense to me, but now it makes the most sense to me.
Right.
And like the way that and now I feel like what we are doing, I don't know if it's like quote unquote like revolutionary, but I definitely think that we're kind of ahead of our time with the whole media and products, and the fact that we haven't ever owned a license, and we've probably have sold more weed than a lot of license holders around the country.
Right.
And so it's like it's interesting to think that an event turned into this.
Yeah. So let's talk about the brand. So you do have this brand of cannabis, right? Called Culture and Cannabis, just like the name of everything else that they've done. And you've launched it here in Nevada. You are spreading the love to other states, namely Oklahoma, right away. So talk about what it was like launching a brand, without being a license holder, and then the expansion capabilities that afforded you Oklahoma.
Yeah. I mean, the capabilities came from a big, from Nevada, right?
Yeah.
And so that funded all that stuff.
Sure.
But, like, we didn't know what we were doing, and
the key was to come up with a brand that you can sell just to really make revenue, and it grew.
Well,
way
I
beyond
think
that,
we had
right?
the products figured out with Culture and Cannabis. Like we could all see what that was. We could tell the story through, you could play off it a million different ways. But like getting out to Oklahoma, like what we did was I just went on Instagram and we just decided we wanted to go out there, and I started just looking up license holders and sending them direct messages.
Right.
And then I set up some meetings, and then we all flew down out there, and we were sitting at Public Us, and he's like, JC, do you want to, he has the Airbnb and the flight booked, and it's like, couple $1,000s, you know what I mean? We have zero money. We probably had $5,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
This trip cost probably like $3,500.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, yo, do we pull the trigger? Like, is that something that we want to do? And
Right.
he was like, yeah, this is like our only option.
And it was like push the button, right? And it's just like, because given the fact that this is a limited license, right, and we're a licensed brand in this market, we were faced with a lot of obstacles that we didn't really see was coming.
Yeah.
The main one being supply chain, right? And so it's hard. You can't scale without supply chain, right? Unless you want to go to another state. And so it was that time for us, and we just went out there. The first people that we talked to. I don't know. What did we talk to? Like 3 or 4 different people. One of them, we look back and we think maybe we probably should have went with that one in the beginning.
Yeah, right.
We went with another one, and it didn't work out, right? And we learned a lot. And for us, it's just process, right? And so it was just a whole learning process for us. And the market's different, so the process is different, right? And so we're working through it. And we thought we could kind of get it done with like some partners and license our deal out there, but I think that the market's so young in Oklahoma. All the cannapreneurs in the market aren't, they got their hands full with their own business, right? And so, we learned that we probably need to build a distribution and a transporting company and a processing facility from the ground up. And so that's the process that we're
that's
at
how
now.
most people go that route. You guys went a different route completely.
Yeah. And so we believe in partnerships, right? And so, but anyway, so that's where we're at now, and we're building it from the ground up. And it's a process, man. And it's it's a very slow process.
Yeah, no, it does. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah. And what's so crazy too is that like Nevada, the problems that we face in Nevada are completely different than Oklahoma.
Interesting.
Like And I guess like Nevada really set us up to be successful pretty much anywhere, I guess in that sense. One, because like if you're gonna get robbed or fucked over, like this is the state that you get fucked over the biggest, right? On the biggest scale. And so it's like for us, like our first ever licensing deal ended up with us like essentially getting robbed for like almost $40,000, right? Which is, at the time was like a stab in the heart, Yeah. And so it's like, how do you overcome that? And it's just like, you have to be able to like I said, have $5,000 in the bank, be like, yo, either we make it or break it. Like this is our only option, right? Or like the money, like, the money does nothing good sitting in the bank.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we maximize the dollars? So it's just been interesting too. And I think, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but I believe it is. We were like the first brand to ever do what we did here in Nevada, which was turn anything that was not a cannabis brand from another state into a cannabis brand, and then to be the first ever local cannabis brand to go out of state.
Right.
Like every other, I don't think there's ever been another brand that's gone out of state.
California, Moxie.
No, yeah, but they started in California and they came here.
Right.
But I think we're the first.
Oh, in Nevada.
Yeah,
Oh,
I think they're the first Nevada brand to ever be created to leave the state.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, and so it's like, and like I didn't think about it until literally this last trip. Like literally, I was like about to go to bed, and I was like just thinking about, I don't know, my mind races 24/7,
Sure.
and that idea.
Shocking. I didn't get that from you at all.
Yeah. I don't have like ADHD or anything, but it, it just kind of like popped in my head, like, yo, we were the first brand to leave the state.
Ah, right. Well, that's awesome, and you did it without owning a cultivation
or having anything, having more than like $50,000.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally made a deal with a cultivator, right? And then you started packaging up, your premium product, right?
Literally by hand. Like me and JC would go there from like 8 to like 2 o'clock in the morning to go make pre-rolls.
I love hearing that.
But the kicker is it didn't work.
Right.
At first.
No, it was like it looked like a home run, and then it got caught right at the end.
Sounds really fairy tale, but like it wasn't.
Right.
We went down there, and Oklahoma doesn't do packaged flower.
Right.
And
they buy it like in the.
it's deli style.
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
And honestly, it's like it's embarrassing for me to even mention that because it's like something hindsight I should have fucking known.
Yeah.
But I didn't, right? But it wouldn't have mattered anyway because. We're so quick to go before it's perfect anyway, because it's the only thing you just have to, right? And so we didn't have any other products anyway except for our prepackaged flour, right? So it wasn't like I could have chose a different product to go with. That's what we went with, right? But what I'm saying is nobody wanted to buy our packaged flour. They're like literally looking at me like they're like, Tony, you do what with your weed? Tony, you put it in what? And then Tony's like, we put it in our brand of Culture and Cannabis bags, and they're just like, well, we don't do that here.
That's
you know what I mean? So it's like,
so then how do you brand something over there if it's not packaged?
You don't, right? So I mean, you get creative.
By strain, I guess.
Well, you get creative, right? And that's what we've had to do. And so now we have a featured farm program where we feature amazing growers doing incredible things with growing clean, great medicine. We tell their story, and then we bring it to market bulk wholesale, right? And so they put it in their jars, and they don't brand it. And when customers or patients come in, they sell it by the gram and put it in a film container and send them on their way.
Interesting.
Yeah, we do offer bags to the dispensary though. So like, hey, if you want to use our bags, they're for free. You don't have to buy them now.
Right.
And there are some retail people that do the packaged flour, but 95% don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a really cool partner out there, Morgan from High Voltage, who like he's probably one of the only people that holds down like the packaged flour, and he hosts a lot of brands that do packaged flour out there.
Yeah.
And so he's been a good staple for us. And so like people like that who believe in what we're doing are willing to get behind us. Yeah. And then in return, we hook them up, right? Like he said to us the other day, like we come in there, we're shooting like $2,000 to $3,000 worth of content. Like this is high quality stuff that we're producing for companies. And I feel like a lot of people take that for granted and don't understand that value. But the people that do understand on a high level.
Yeah.
So
I think that the beautiful thing about that whole situation is that the beautiful thing about getting started before it's perfect is that because we got started before it was perfect, now we have a whole slew of creative products that infused, branded on the other side that we don't have to do, right? And that situation really forced us to do that.
Yeah.
And that's what's crazy to think about, right? Now we have all
I
kinds.
think the whole industry is built on moving before everything's perfect. Because what's perfect
You
now?
have to, right? Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
nothing.
Nothing. Right. So, the key is taking the chance and rolling the dice, like you said, and
showing up.
That's showing up. That's right.
Yeah.
That's more than half the battle.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Like buying very expensive 24 karat gold cones and hoping people buy them.
Right. And what do you see as the similarities and the differences between Nevada and Oklahoma?
I mean, I would say really none, honestly. Like the only thing I can say is that, do you remember the energy, Todd, when it was like right after Rec Pop, like 2017,
I do.
and everyone was just like so excited about fucking everything, and like every weekend there was a party, and every license holder was spending way too much money in marketing and advertising. That's Oklahoma 24/7, but everyone only has $500 to spend. So it's just like, so it's always a party. It's a low budget party, but it's always a party. And that's really the only similarity I see. It's just because it's like super exciting right now that cannabis is legal, and now they're in like where. To like literally 2020, I lived there for 32 days with Chuck to help get the brand launch out there, and it was straight hay as far as flower goes. Now today, you have like flower. I would say is like that would like hang with like some of the best flower in the country.
Nice.
And it's just because people are starting to move out there because they're seeing it as like a haven, right? Because it's low taxes, very cheap to live. You have $2,500 in a dream, you're a license holder.
Right. And weed's legal. Why would you want to move there? Right?
And weed's legal. And, Oklahoma, I think it's like, 15 or 20% of their population has a medical card.
Oh, wow.
Which
That's
is
huge.
unheard of.
That's huge.
And like...
That's huge. Yeah, Florida's got a big number too, but Oklahoma too is one of the...
Well, and what's so crazy is like Oklahoma, I think, max has 6 million people in the whole state, 7 million people in the whole state, where like Florida's massive, right? And so like the numbers they're putting up...
million,
the numbers they're putting up sales-wise, like is not that they're beating Nevada by any means, but they're definitely competing. I forget what their tax number was, but it was... I think only a couple hundred million off from us, which is like insane to think about. They were like,
it is pretty insane.
They're tourist capital of the world.
That's right.
With some of the highest taxes.
$1 billion in Nevada.
Yeah.
$1 billion in sales.
I think like last year they did like 750 million or 800 million in Oklahoma.
That's crazy.
Which is insane to think about.
And the products are completely different too.
Yeah.
And the consumer is completely different.
Yeah.
Because they're educated in Oklahoma.
Interesting.
They're not educated here. They're like, you give a pack of gummies to an Oklahoma patient, and they're going to be like, is this hash infused or is this RSO infused?
Right.
Oh, that's distillate. Get that out of here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's all medical there, right?
All medical.
They'll put gummies made not with distillate right on the packaging.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. and the milligram usage.
So
like the consumer out there, like on average, like an average buy is like 500 milligrams.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like a bag of that 500 milligram is like what's the highest selling category of product.
Wow.
And what's even crazier is so like here in Nevada, 70% of all sales is flower, and then 30% is divided up across the board. In Oklahoma, it's 65% flower, 30% edibles, and then everything else is that what is that, 10%?
Yeah.
Yeah, that gets divided up. And
30%
so
is huge.
It's insane. There, people are buying edibles like it's going out of style out there. And it's what's so crazy is that like, you learn things over time. And so like 2 years ago, I figured I started understanding like the reason why edibles are great is because the price per THC is way lower than it is than flower. Right. And so like you could take distillate and make 10x the amount of money in revenue than you would with a pound of flour.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which is so insane, and that's why people, that's why it's like feast or famine out there for a lot of people.
And are there like beef jerky products?
Oh yeah, all the weird shit is out there.
Whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ice cream.
I have the RSO peanut butter in my fridge right now.
Oh yeah.
Oh, nice.
And there's dude, people are doing freeze dried edibles. Right. I mean, it's people have ice cream.
I have the chocolate flavored granola at my house. The
peanuts, bubble gum,
peanuts,
literally anything they can infuse.
Right.
Like pretty much every candy you could ever think of.
Right.
M&M, Skittles.
Interesting. That's funny. Now you lived there for 32 days. Did you get a cowboy hat?
Did not get a cowboy hat.
Oh.
I caught COVID though.
Oh. Well, there you go.
Essentially, it's pretty as Oklahoma as it gets, right?
Right. Yeah, that's hilarious. So are there you know how they passed the law for lounges here in
Yeah.
Nevada, and that should be legislating pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any lounges on the horizon in OK?
Well, the law in Oklahoma is that you can smoke anywhere you can smoke a cigarette.
Wow.
So it's
New York.
Yeah. So it's really like
As it should be,
yeah.
honestly. But
Every bar is a lounge.
I gotcha.
Do you, there's this one district called the Plaza District. It's in Oklahoma City. It's probably my favorite part of Oklahoma City. And there's like 3 dispensaries on this block with a shit ton of bars, and every patio people are just puffing weed, and no one says anything.
Interesting.
It's honestly a super dope environment, and it's like, you know how like people in Europe aren't crazy about alcohol.
Yeah.
It's like the same idea with that. It's like no one really. It's like it's not as like crazy. Like
Right.
people aren't going as nuts because it's like who cares?
Right. They're just smoking.
It's
some weed and
casual.
Chill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so people aren't abusing it because it's like, yeah, I'm just puffing a joint, having a drink. No big deal.
Right. And do you think that sort of tone and attitude will translate here in Nevada when lounges open here?
No, I think it's going to take a minute before that happens. And the reason why is because of the tax money.
Yeah.
Because Oklahomans will go storm the Capitol, essentially. The people in Nevada don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like people aren't politically active, right? When like people in Oklahoma, like they've sold their farms and went all in on cannabis. So if there's going to be any legislation that's going to pass that's going to affect them negatively, they're the first there. I mean, they've successfully made sure Metric will not come into the state.
Oh, that's funny.
Like multiple times have made like push back Metric.
Right.
they're like they're
Like
on the front steps of the courthouse.
Like
now.
low key on some like mob,
Yeah.
with pitchforks
Like,
and tiki torches type vibe.
And Metric, for those guys who don't know, it's a seed to sale software that is mandatory in Nevada and California and many other states. Interesting how Oklahoma's fighting the whole Metric, seed to sale. Do they use any tracking system?
No, which is an issue. It's a double-edged sword, and I think for them, they just don't like the fact that it's forced upon them.
Right.
Their point is like, if we're gonna get a seed to sale tracker, we want to vote on which one it is.
And most of them are trying to do the right thing. They use LeafLink. They do the testing. They put the batch numbers on the thing.
Right.
But there's not one system that tracks all of it.
Yeah, which allows for a lot of black market.
Yeah.
And I was reading a statistic that was saying that like 65% of the country's black market weed now is coming from Oklahoma, and it's because literally there's farms everywhere. I mean, there's over like 9,000 active licenses or some crazy shit.
Yeah, I did read that.
But between like dispensaries, cultivations, processors, distributors, transporters, and what's cool about Oklahoma? I mean, Oklahoma, like from a model standpoint, is what the rest of the country should be.
Yeah.
Here's my money. Just like how I can get a liquor license for any bar here in town, here's my money. I'm gonna try it, and if I fail, I fail. But at least I didn't get out moneyed, right? At least it wasn't because I didn't have a private hedge fund, or my father wasn't
Rich father, right?
Yeah, that was able to put up to $3 million for a license.
I call that the Lucky Sperm Club.
Yeah, exactly, the Lucky Spur Club. And so it's like stuff like that, and it's honestly. Like I think it's really made me and JC more hopeful in cannabis throughout the country, because pretty much every other state has followed suit with Nevada with like limited licenses, a lot of regulatory body, high taxes.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's the only state that really hasn't.
Right.
So to see that is promising, hoping that more states around Oklahoma start picking that up. Like if Texas, let's just say Texas goes legal and they pick the Oklahoma model, that'll be massive for the country.
Massive. Yeah.
It would completely change the idea of a federal legalization and like that landscape. If a state like Texas is like, whoa, you're not going to tell us that we have to have federal licenses now in a limited license market, and only Philip Morris and Monsanto. Yeah, Monsanto can only be the only players.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that could be coming though over time. I think it's going to be a pharmaceutical takeover before a Reynolds takeover or a cigarette takeover.
Yeah, it's just interesting to think about, like on a federal level, like how that plays out, right? Like who buys that? Is, like you said, is it the pharmaceutical companies or is it Anheuser-Busch, right? And it's like who. I
think it's Anheuser Pharmaceuticals is what it becomes.
Yeah,
same
right.
kind of, because weed is an interesting product in that. To some people, it's morphine, right? To other people, it's a beer, right? Or a glass of wine, So it does have that interesting twist to it that it does fit, numerous holes.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I definitely do want to talk about lounges though, here in Nevada.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I mean, have you seen the legislation?
I have.
Okay. How do you feel about it?
You know, I think that a lounge that competes with a dispensary will end up being a problem, right? So
Okay.
I like the idea that the dispensaries have the opportunity to open the lounges, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I also like the opportunity for the restaurant owner to be able to open a lounge, you know, and it's not limited to only these specific licenses.
Yeah.
You know, I think that for it to be successful, it has to be integrated with things that already exist instead of having a standalone lounge, right?
Yep.
Even though that's part of the legislation that you can build one, I don't see a tourist saying, I got to get to XYZ lounge because I heard it was cool.
Yeah.
I see it as more of an experience, like the Cannabis Cafe in California that closed during COVID. But when I was there, and we used to do a podcast from there, you know, every month. So
I remember
it
that.
was a lot of fun.
You did it with Dr. Dina, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And several other folks. But yeah, she's awesome. I love Dina. Shout out Dr. Dina. What's up?
Yeah.
And the way their model worked was it was a dispensary license, and then the different address, like end a half or whatever the address number was,
Yeah.
right, was the restaurant. So you had two different menus. One was food, one was weed. And you ordered your food and you ordered your weed, and the weed came from the dispensary, the food came from the restaurant, and everybody was really happy and full, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it worked out. So I really liked that model because it's like the model of I have a restaurant, I want to be able to provide weed, just like the Oklahoma model, right? And I think that can work. But the go-to, you know, unless the casinos get involved somehow, some way, I don't see. You know, they're certainly not going to promote,
No.
you know, go to XYZ Lounge, right?
Yeah.
They're certainly not, unless it's in their building,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's going to be a struggle for the visitor. Where do I go? What do I do? Because let's face it, most people are smoking weed in their rooms anyway.
Yeah.
And if they're renting a car, they're smoking weed in their rental car.
Yeah.
You know, or if they go somewhere,
All
they're
the
smoking
above.
weed wherever they are
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it needs to have a home somewhere, you know, like that Oklahoma model.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, I think there's a lot of faults. I think it's this lounge thing is a massive win for consumers across the country and for the cannabis industry as a whole across the country. And the reason why is because it's really going to allow people to come to Las Vegas and go to a place like Planet 13, who's obviously going to do a fantastic job of producing the most high quality experience of a cannabis lounge. And it will be able to open people's mind around the world about how cannabis is and how it should be treated and acted with.
Right. I mean, literally, they built their place to be exactly that.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's a world dominated place. So for the consumer, it's fantastic. And I think for the Nevada industry as a whole, on a macro level, it's going to be the best thing that's ever happened. On a micro level, as far as being as someone who's a small business owner who doesn't own a dispensary license, I think it's the worst thing that could have ever happened. And the main reason why is because you put a lot of power. So dispensaries already have, as we all know, dispensaries in Nevada have the most amount of power. They pretty much have everyone by their balls, essentially, right? You know, they tell the cultivators how much they sell their weed for. They tell the producers how much to sell their products for. And if they don't like you, smell you later. And there's only a limited amount to sell to you. Like in Oklahoma, well, if this person doesn't like me, who gives a shit? The guys across the street will buy my stuff, right? And so I like the idea that the dispensary groups can only get one license, so not every single one of their dispensaries has a lounge. So I think that helps. But the fact that these independent lounges, there's only 20 of these licenses, which is a small number if you really think about it. Like, think about how many bars there are in Las Vegas. So 20 licenses, half of those are social equity, which I think is a very lame attempt of social equity to like you know, people's fathers were put in jail for a lifetime for cannabis, and 10 social equity licenses are going to fix that. No,
but an attempt, you know, nonetheless.
They tried.
Yeah,
I just think it's a lame attempt.
Yeah.
My personal opinion.
Right.
And then on top of it, like this independent lounge thing is I just think it's a way. It's a setup by the dispensary organizations to show that people should not own these independent lounges, because I think a majority of them are going to fail. Yeah. And the biggest reason why is because every product that goes into either the 10 regular licenses or social equity licenses has to be bought from a dispensary. So me as Culture and Cannabis cannot go to an independent lounge license and say, hey, you should buy my product from my cultivation. Well, no, you have to go to a dispensary that's willing to sell to that license to be able to provide that product. And so like anyone that's ever sold regular like drugs legally or illegally knows that more middleman means higher markup. Yeah. So like for me to sell a pre-roll that's going to go into someone's independent lounge, I sell that pre-roll for X amount of dollars. There's going to be a multiple on that from the dispensary to that lounge. But why, and so it's like, but that dispensary is also going to have a lounge. So why would a consumer go to that, like you said, to an independent lounge? They're already at a dispensary. They're buying the product. I'm just going to go smoke it right next door. So I said this today. I think out of the 20, I think 2 will be successful. And I think that those 2 will be someone like you said, like how a casino can get involved. It's not necessarily I could see casinos, but I see like nightlife, like a Tao or Hakkasan or STK or one of these groups that already has millions of dollars who can say, oh no, we'll just buy a license, buy this super sick place. We'll create an STK. We went to STK like 2 weeks ago. Right. If you built an STK where you can smoke weed at, a lot of people are going to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So that will work. And which not a lot of people can do. And then the other one is one for the culture, right? Where you have someone who is not necessarily the most like the richest person in the world, but they're very plugged in and respected, right? And, especially like in the hip hop community or R&B community where they can bring in celebrities like a Hardeen, but on a local level. Right. That's really the only way I see it working, and I think the other 18 are not going to have a really hard time being successful.
Yeah, I think.
And so for like,
you're right.
Yeah, and so for like ancillary companies, like for us on like an event level, it's great because everyone's going to want Culture and Cannabis to come through their events at the dispensary, either their dispensary lounge or their independent lounge. Right. So like for groups like us, it's a win. It's just I feel bad for people who think that this independent lounge license is going to be their home run because it's not.
Right. Right.
So
the added expense of the markup of the markup of the markup and then taxes.
Yeah.
A joint's going to be $20.
You're talking about $30 grams is what we're talking about. And so it's like
insane.
and
it's like $1,000
and so everything's now a single serve item, right? So you're talking labor through the roof. So it's like instead of putting 10 gummies in a bag, it's 1 gummy in a bag.
Right.
And so that's going to take a lot of labor, which is going to cost more.
Yeah. What do you think about the New Woo model?
Like how they have it,
yeah.
Like how they have set up. I think it's great for what it is.
Yeah.
I think that is going to be majority of people's models at everyone's dispensary because it's like okay, let's say I want to go buy Culture and Cannabis weed, but I'm not 100% sure I want to buy an ounce, so I'll go buy a joint of it so I can try it out. Oh, this was great. Yeah, I'll spend $200 on an ounce, no problem. Right. So I can smoke this every day. So the idea that you can try before you buy, I think is a really cool idea.
Yeah, I do too.
And then after a while, and I think it will make a more informed consumer over time too. Like I said, I think for the consumer and on the macro level, it's fantastic. And it's like it needed to happen here in Las Vegas. It's just unfortunate that the independent lounge thing happened the way it did. And I think it's going to take a long time, at least 2 to 3 legislative cycles before we even get that law
really?
changed.
That's 6 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's the other issue. Well, look at the DUI law. How many, we made that TY law for cannabis about 2 nanograms or 9 nanograms or whatever that amount was. Right. It took almost 8 years to change it.
Yeah.
So it's like, and that's a no-brainer law. Like this is a lot more complex what we're talking about with these lounges. Sure. Like to a regular person, they're not going to understand. Like who gives a shit? Like I can buy weed and smoke it at the same place.
That's right.
This sounds like a thumbs up to me.
Yeah.
Which it is to a lot of people. So like the fact that the DUI law took so long to change, is this going to take? Maybe it's 12 years.
Right.
Maybe it's 15 years. Who knows? And that's the issue. So it's like because Nevada, once it's a law, it's really tough to change, as everyone knows.
That's right. And now that it's not a law, it's tough to change.
Yeah.
Right. It's tough to make a law, and
it's tough to make a law.
It's also tough to change one.
Yeah.
That's true. So do you guys focus mainly on flower and joints? Is that what Culture and Cannabis is all about?
We're going wider and wider all the time. So we started with flower. We wanted that to be kind of the anchor of who we are. But we're going to expand and go as wide as we can.
And what's the criteria for something to become, a Culture and Cannabis product?
Yeah, so our standards is, this we pretty much just have a set standard, which is like anything over 20% THC, and we try to have a higher terpene profile. In Oklahoma, it's 3% terps. Here in Nevada, it's probably like closer to 5%, just because a lot of brands can get closer to that. So we can try to keep around that, but we're pretty much open to anything. There's times we saw weed that was 17% that we thought was really good with high terps, and the customers like it, so we sell it. You know, and so it's just unfortunate that price and THC are correlated, which makes no sense. But that's just how the consumer buys. So you know, as long as you hit that 20% threshold, pretty much you're in the clear. Anything underneath that, you have to be really careful with like terpene profiles and making sure the flower is smokable and people that want to buy it.
Right. I'm here with full-time Tony and JC Coates here on TNM News, and they are from Culture and Cannabis, brand here in Las Vegas, Nevada, also in Oklahoma. What other cities are you guys looking at?
I mean,
all of them.
they're all at risk, you know. But I think because of what we've been through with Oklahoma, we're looking at ones we could drive to. But listen,
so California,
anywhere is open.
Washington.
Yeah,
everyone's
Colorado
at risk.
even, you know.
Colorado even. Yeah, places that are just necessarily closer. Right?
Arizona, right?
Arizona, California are probably on top of our hit list right now. Obviously, you know, now knowing what we know, okay, and that's kind of like hypocritical, but obviously limited license is way easier to sell product in, right? You get into the market, you're guaranteed sales. Not that I think it's correct, but you know that it is what it is. So you got to play with the cards that have been dealt. So getting into an Arizona, I think would be more ideal than getting into a California, just because there's a lot less competition. And you know, I like Arizona, I think a lot better than California. To be honest with you.
A lot simpler rules. In Arizona,
and just I think simpler people too.
I would agree. You know, the cannabis consumer in California, say that 3 times fast. Is educated. Because they've been smoking weed for a long time. And the black market is huge in California.
I think that you're also competing massively with black market.
100%.
And so it's like you're not even competing with the other consumers. You're competing with the guy that lives on the same block. It's the person that's buying the weed from you.
Yeah, that's right. So do you have events coming up? What do you got going on?
We do. We do have an event coming up in February over Champs.
Oh, nice.
So,
Awesome. And what can we expect?
So we don't have a lot of details for that, but we're going to have a really stacked local lineup. So, you know, our event's kind of like low-key, like a variety style, right? So we'll have different genres of music, but we'll have some legendary DJs, some legendary performers that have been, you know, doing things in downtown Vegas for a long time. And then we'll have a surprise headliner that we'll probably announce next month. But yeah, that'll be the second day of Champs, the second to last day of Winter Champs. Expects to be a really big show.
Awesome. And will it be a consumption event? Is that allowed here in Vegas?
So we're still not there yet, right?
Yeah, consumption is not allowed in Las Vegas, but just like you said, people kind of smoke anywhere, right? So for us, obviously, like we do not promote consumption in any of our events because we are a brand here that is attached to licenses and licenses sponsor it. But if you walk outside the event, out of our jurisdiction, and you want to do whatever you want to do,
there was some smoke in the air. At the last event.
Yeah, just not inside the venue, right? And so we just make sure that. But like, you know, it's hard to manage that. Like you're at a cannabis event, people that want to smoke weed, they're gonna figure out how to smoke weed. They've been smoking weed before it was like super illegal. Now it's legal. People don't give a shit at all. So it's like, and you know, a lot of the venues that we work with don't care for the most part as long as they don't have gaming there, and so we're chill.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good. I think you know, that term 420 friendly, right, is creeping its way to mainstream America. Because people want to smoke weed. I mean, you know, the demand for weed is so high. It's clear, right, that it's a viable product. And we touched on a little bit earlier federal legalization. And what do you think that's going to happen? And do you think it helps or hurts the market?
Ooh, I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. I think I don't think it's gonna happen anytime soon, to be honest with you. Like everyone, like they always feel like it feels like they get so close every time and then it gets thrown off the table. And I think the biggest reason why is just because like groups like Anheuser-Busch and the pharmaceutical companies haven't truly figured out what their angle is yet. And I mean, obviously they know what their angle is, but I don't feel like they figured out truly. And so like, they're not going to push that right now. And I think obviously, I don't think COVID helped it at all. I think COVID kind of pushed us back a little bit because everything's been so focused on COVID and what's happening with that.
We have become essential.
We are, right? And we are essential workers. So I think is very interesting as well. And it's because it is a medicine. And so I think the other big issue, like you said, it's like who buys the industry? Is it Anheuser-Busch or is it pharmaceutical companies? It's a combination of both. But I mean, I think it's good if it allows. I think one or two things are going to happen. Either A, they just pull 280E, which allows people to bank, and that essentially makes it federally legal. Anyone can do business, and then they just allow the states to do whatever they want to do, or they make it federal, like a federal legalization, and they manage it and like have a regulatory body that's over the state regulatory bodies.
Right.
Which I think that's the worst case scenario.
Right. Like an FDA or
Yeah.
a USDA or
Yeah.
one of those agencies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that is definitely worst case scenario, just because it doesn't put the rights in the state's hands, where you can, as a consumer or someone who's an active person in the community, where you can make the most amount of impact politically. So that federal legalization, you're only allowing guys like Budweiser.
Yeah.
It's like, the guy, and so to that effect, people who bought multi-million-dollar license in Nevada, who cares if you have a multi-million-dollar license in Nevada? I can just go to California and drive it back.
Yeah, that's right.
Or potentially buy it on Amazon and get it shipped to my house.
That's right. I think interstate commerce is very, very important. It's interesting how, you can't sell to another state. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
We can't cross a state line with in like California's legal, Nevada's legal, but you can't drive in with any weed with you.
And Utah also has a medical program now too. So it's like, and so like we were talking about it on a different podcast in Oklahoma, because someone brought up the idea to me that like, yeah, Oklahoma might not be the best market now, but it potentially might be when it goes federally legal and you have interstate commerce. And it's because it's like, why would places like Arkansas or Mississippi or Tennessee, who really, one, don't have people that have the experience, know how to grow on a commercial scale, and two, people that maybe not understand it, like why would they go start grows that will take 9 to 12 months to get started and fully ran, when they could just pop up a dispensary and buy weed from Oklahoma and get it shipped there? Yeah. So I think like hubs like Oklahoma, or places where there's a lot of land distribution, those places are going to win big time, because they can be able to grow it there and then just put it on a truck and ship it to wherever they go. Like North Dakota and South Dakota, they're not going to have grow facilities there. They have dispensaries though, because it's easy to have retail spots. Because America understands retail, but America does not understand how to grow weed.
That's right. That's why I think Tennessee is going to be a big distribution state.
Yeah.
Because it touches, 12 states.
Yeah.
Half of the country, is within 500 miles of Tennessee.
That's a good point.
Those are big, big numbers, and you're right. All they'll have to do is just import, pop open some dispensaries, and and sell to everybody. I also think from a Schedule 1 standpoint, if they remove it from Schedule 1, it disrupts the whole industry, right? Do we buy our weed at CVS, or do we still go to a dispensary, and follow all of those rules?
Yeah.
So I think that the corporate takeover with whatever pharmaceutical or alcohol company, dives in, together with some drugstore chain, those are going to be the corporate winners.
Yeah.
When we go federally legal.
Yeah, Walmart weed, right? Like,
that's right.
Like, when you're able to go to Walmart or Costco and buy it bulk,
That's right.
And so I think it's going to be real interesting, because I mean, on a surface level, like to look at it, like it's easy to compare it to alcohol, right? But then it's not, because of like it's a medical product too, and alcohol is not necessarily really a medical product.
Yeah.
People
depends on who you ask, right?
Yeah, it depends on who you ask, right? Yeah.
Right.
But like alcohol is, no one's using alcohol to like help fight cancer.
Yeah.
So it's so I think that's that I can't say that one.
Distinguishes.
Yeah, distinguishes, like it's going to be different.
Yeah.
It has to be different.
Yeah, that's why I think it's Big Pharma that takes over. And what do they want? They're looking for the biggest and brightest, production, manufacturing, and distribution.
Yeah.
Because that's what they need, right? And
Yeah.
That's why I think it's a slam dunk for them. And then when that happens, the FDA gets involved. Department of Ag probably gets involved a little bit, because everyone's going to have their hand out, because everyone thinks everyone in the cannabis business is just racking in the millions of dollars, right? And we all know that's not true.
Yeah, right? And I'm interested to see, what big cannabis corporations now are selling out to these companies, or trying to hold on.
All of them.
I know, right? I feel every single one of them, right? They're gonna cash in their check. Pretty much everyone from Canada is gonna get a huge payday.
That's right. That's right.
And I don't know if this is true or not, but I was reading that during prohibition with alcohol, that's what happened. A lot of Canadian money bought a lot of the alcohol industry and then sold it back to America.
Yeah, the Kennedys. That's how the Kennedys became the Kennedys. They bought all the distribution for all the moonshiners.
That makes sense.
And suddenly they owned distribution of alcohol in the United States of America.
Yeah.
Right? And now they're the Kennedys.
Yeah, and they always will be.
And they always will be. That's for sure. All right, so tell us again where to find you guys. Website, social media. Where do we find you guys?
Culture and Cannabis, LV.com. And then it's just Culture & Cannabis on Instagram.
Great. And they have a really great Instagram channel. Their YouTube channel is awesome. Tony is definitely Reno as fuck. And the post is, like you were mentioning before, it's all good, high quality production value. You guys do a really good job with putting that stuff together and
Thank you, man.
entertaining the masses. Anything else you want to talk about before we go?
Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Stay tuned for more products from Culture and Cannabis. Will be coming out really soon.
Yeah, check it out. So Culture and Cannabis, JC Coates and FullTime Tony, they are coming to a state or city near you. If you're in Oklahoma, make sure you check out, who's your partner down there?
Oh, High Voltage.
High Voltage
Yep.
down in OK City. And who's carrying your stuff here?
We're in almost 30 dispensaries. So
Wow.
all the sources, all the Nevada-made marijuanas, sanctuaries, Jades, 420 Sahara Wellness,
Awesome.
Canistars,
All over the place.
the Sierra Wells and Greenleaf up in Northern Nevada,
Vegas
Treehouse, Green Dispensary. I know I'm missing a couple, but
Canistars.
all the essences and
nice. But you're everywhere.
yeah, we're in a lot of dispensaries right now.
Right, so make sure you check out Culture and Cannabis in one of the 30 dispensaries that they're in. And make sure you check out their website, cultureandcannabislv.com. And like I said, you can check out their podcast on the Facebook page, on any of the podcast outlets, Apple and YouTube and Google and all of the other ones. So make sure you check them out. Guys, thanks for coming in. Always a pleasure to see
Thanks
you
so
guys.
much.
And we'll see you soon on your podcast.
Yes, definitely.
All right?
Appreciate it. Thanks,
All right,
Todd.
take care.
Thanks, Todd.